This is a call from Metropolitan Correctional Facility in Chicago, Illinois. You have a collect call from Nick. Do you accept the charges?
So that's how it all started. When you're Albanian, you accept all the calls from jail. You never know who's calling. Your father, your brother, your uncle, your nephew, one of your cousins, and we literally have hundreds of cousins.
My name is Nico. I'm looking for Paulie.
Paulie's not here. This is his cousin John. What's the matter? Why are you in jail?
I was arrested at the airport with a fake passport. I grew up with Paulie in Lushnja and only have this number and my uncle's number in Brooklyn.
Don't worry about it. Not a big deal. We'll get you out in a couple of days. What's your uncle's phone number?
Uh, 718-555-4587. His name is Petar. Thank you so much.
No problem, Nico. Call me back tomorrow at this time. Paul will be here. We'll get you out. Stay strong. Don't forget you're Albanian. So Nico got arrested in Chicago with a fake passport. Young, scary kid. I called Paulie. Paulie had no idea that Nico was coming to the United States. Paulie was my cousin who worked with me in the restaurant. Paulie and Nico were born in a city called Lushnja in South Albania, in what the government used to call a labor camp. I called it a concentration camp, and that's exactly what it was. You were concentrated in a certain area, and you were not allowed to go to another area without the permission of the government. Funny thing is that they were in a concentration camp because they were enemies of the state. They were both born there. They were enemies of the state before they were even born. It's like being born in a prison and serving a lifetime sentence because you had the wrong type of blood. You came from the wrong family. My mother and my uncle Nuan escaped Albania after World War II. Then my uncle Joka and my aunt Dronja, as a punishment, were sent into that camp. All their children were born in that camp. So was Nico's family. I called Paulie, told Paulie Nico called. He said, oh, Nico was in Mirditor, which is the north part of northern Albania, and he comes from a very, very honorable family. I called a friend of mine, Martin, who was an immigration lawyer, and told him to get on a case and see if he can get the kid out of jail. This was 2001, so the immigration system worked a little bit different. Next night, Nico called, spoke to Paulie. A couple of days later, Martin called me and said he got in touch with the immigration and he will be released in a couple of days. 2 days later, Nico was on his way from Chicago to Newark Airport. I went to pick him up. The ride from Newark Airport to Irvington, where I live, is a little bit over an hour. So we had time to chat. Nico came in the car, all nervous, scared, because America is a scary place. America is a big place. America is especially a scary place if you grew up in a communist country and you listen to all the propaganda and lies about the dirty capitalist pigs. On our way to the restaurant, Nico said that his uncle lives in Brooklyn and he used to send him a couple of letters a year to the family, and each letter contained an international money order. He also sent money to all the cousins that town. According to my simple math in my head, this man sent over $200,000 to Albania in a period of 10 years. I said to Nico, what does your uncle do? He goes, I have no idea. I was like, this is gotta be a prank from my cousin Paulie. This guy sent $200,000 in Albania. His nephew doesn't know what he does for a living. I've never heard of this man in my life. At that time, I was a journalist. I had a radio show on 105.9 FM. I was very active in an Albanian Catholic church and almost every Albanian cultural activity. I've never ever heard of this man. What do you mean you don't know what he does for a living? I don't. He writes very simple letters. All his letters say, I am okay, I hope you're okay, here's a little money to help you with some food and small things. We get to the restaurant, my brain started working. Is this a joke? Or is this some reality that I don't know exists? Am I in a Twilight Zone? We get to the restaurant, have dinner. It was actually pleasant to see Paulie and Nico together discussing their time in the devil's camp. Next morning we headed to Brooklyn. Let me tell you something about New York. You're not a real New Yorker unless you go to every borough and every neighborhood in every borough and see what it is. To me, Brooklyn was a scene from Welcome Back, Kotter. When you drive a BMW 750iL and you have 3 white men in it, in some neighborhoods you become automatically a suspect for both the cops and the people in the neighborhood. The building was a rundown building, typical for the neighborhood where we were. As I'm driving, I turned to Paulie and said, Paulie, check the address again. Something is wrong here. 3813 Hooper Street. That's the building. I said, there's no fucking way on earth that that man lives in that building. It just made no sense. Says, that's what the address says. We parked, walked into the building, broken door, garbage everywhere. I rang the superintendent's bell. Out comes this middle-aged white man with an angry face. Says in thick Russian accent, "Šta ti hoćeš?" So I started telling him, we're here looking for one of your tenants. His uncle interrupted me in the middle of a sentence. He says, "Ja ne poнимаю." I was like, this is getting better by the minute. So I used every language I knew. Serbian, some Russian I remember from high school, Albanian, English, Spanish, Italian, sarcasm, you name it. Used everything. At the end of the conversation, all I got from this superintendent was, Peter was not Albanian, but was Puerto Rican. He lived on the 5th floor. His door is always open, and he's never home because he leaves very early and he comes very late, and he has no idea where he goes. If you want to go upstairs, the door is open, apartment 5B. So we walked 5 stairs of flights. Of course, the elevator wasn't working. We get to the door. I knock, nothing. I push the door opens. Long hallway, at the end of the hallway, you can see a broken down brown couch. We walked in that apartment that day as if we were walking in St. Patrick's Cathedral during a mass and we didn't want to be noticed. Nobody spoke a word. We walked slowly, honestly expecting somebody to come with a shotgun and shoot us. We get to the living room, and there's the couch. There's a broken TV, one of those old-fashioned big cabinet TVs with a broken glass, a copy of New York Times on top with dust. That's the living room. On the right of the living room, there was a kitchen, and in the kitchen there was a table, 2 chairs, one of them broken with 3 legs. On the right, a surprisingly clean sink and oven. And when I say clean, immaculately clean. On the wall, an old cream-colored 9X telephone. A refrigerator, and I was really, really curious what could possibly be inside that refrigerator. I opened the door, and I was shocked. The refrigerator was filled from the top to the bottom with Italian-style loaves of bread wrapped in a paper that you buy in the supermarket. Entire refrigerator had bread in it, nothing else. I opened the freezer. The freezer had about a dozen pint-sized containers, plastic containers with something in them that I could not tell what it was. I was speechless. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I closed it. On the right of the kitchen was another room. It was a bedroom with an open door, broken furniture all over, papers, and a bunch of pictures on the floor. A picture of 3 men in a suit, black and white, caught my attention. I grabbed it. It said 1961 on the back with a pencil. I showed it to Nick. I said, Nick, do you know anybody here? Nick, with his shaking voice, said, that's my uncle. In the middle. It was a picture of 3 good-looking men with a black and white picture with black and white suits with ties. So I put the picture in the pocket, walked back to the living room. On the left of the living room was another bed. The door was closed. I said, maybe that's where he's going to come out now. Knocked on the door, nothing. I opened the door. The first thing that got my attention was a picture of Mother Teresa on a wall from an old Vatra calendar. That kind of gave me a little hope, but I was still in the twilight zone. I said, most likely he's Albanian for having a picture of Mother Teresa on a wall, because nobody else would have that at the time. There was a bed, make-believe bed, basically a piece of plywood with a blanket, a clean pillow, and another blanket. There was no mattress. One of the blankets acted as a mattress. A small closet, 4 pair of black pants, and a couple of golf shirts. Next to the bed was a small table with 2 envelopes. One of them was a Con Edison bill, and one of them was an IRS return refund check for $300. Both of them had his name on it and the address. I grabbed the envelope, looked at it very carefully, looked at the spelling of the name. I said to Nico and Paulie, I said, I think I got it. This man doesn't want anybody to know where he lives because he's rich. So he rented this apartment and gave us this address in case somebody's looking for him. Nothing else made sense. Nothing whatsoever. However, the superintendent told us that there's a guy who's crazy and he's Puerto Rican and he lives upstairs. So I said, maybe that Puerto Rican guy basically took over an apartment. Went back in the kitchen, I grabbed the phone that we've been calling for a couple of days with no answer. I grabbed the phone, I dialed my own phone, and it was the right phone number that we've been calling for a couple of days. We went back downstairs, got in the car. I didn't know, should I drive, should I not drive, should I talk, should I not talk? I was in total shock. Paulie and Nick were more than the shock than I was. I ran back to the lobby of the building and I took down the management company's phone number. 15 minutes later, we walked into a real estate office on the 2nd floor nearby. We walk in and there's this old Jewish lady sitting at the desk with the biggest smile in the world and says, Shalom, Bubala. Shalom. What can I do for you? I said, we're here looking for one of your tenants from 3813 Cooper Street. She goes, which one? His name is Peter. Where are you from, Bubala? I said, I'm Albanian. Oh my God, I love Albanians. I was like, oh really? Hallelujah, maybe this woman will help us figure it out. I said, you know a lot of Albanians? None, 0. I said, how do you like Albanians if you don't know any? Ah, Bubala, Bubala. I know what your people did during World War II. You're a nation of Gentiles. You saved my people in World War II. How could you not love Albanians? You did a lot of good mitzvahs. So Bubala, what do you need? This Bubala business was getting a little bit annoying, but she was so cute and sweet. I said, this is Nico, he came from Albania looking for his uncle. You said he's from Albania too? I said, yeah. But why is he looking for Peter? That's his uncle. But Peter's Puerto Rican. I was like, what the fuck is with this Puerto Rican stuff? We don't even look Puerto Rican. She said, yeah, Peter is one of our best tenants. He's been living there for 30 years. He has never, ever paid the rent 1 day late. He comes every first of the month and brings us the check. He has a rent-controlled apartment, 2-bedroom, and he pays $120 a month. He's paranoid. He always thinks that we want to evict him. He doesn't let us go in his apartment. There were lots of issues, plumbing. He would not let us fix them. A couple of apartments below him got destroyed. Doesn't care, doesn't let us in the apartment. What does he do? I have no idea. But he pays the rent. He leaves every morning early, comes late every night. The only 2 days that he's home is Saturday and Sunday. He locks himself in the apartment, doesn't talk to anybody, doesn't allow anybody in. We walked downstairs and I said, I think I figured it out. The enigma kept becoming bigger and bigger. I said, the reason why they think he's Puerto Rican, because the building was basically Puerto Ricans and blacks. There was no whites in the building. He didn't talk to anyone, dressed up in a certain way, that everybody just assumed he's just another Puerto Rican. Got in a car, drove back to Irvington. Not many words were exchanged. It was a Friday. Next morning, Saturday, I woke Paulie and Nico up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I don't think they got much sleep either. 5 o'clock, we were in front of the building. We walked upstairs, got to the door was locked. Where the lock of the cylinder is in the door, the day before was a big hole. This morning, there was some fabric basically blocking the view. So I knocked on the door. Nothing. I started knocking louder.
Hey, shut the fuck up! It's 5 o'clock in the morning!
It wasn't only one person who said that. I got close to the door. I pushed the fabric inside. Most quickly, I said, most likely, if it was me, there would be a screwdriver in my eye. Nothing happened. I looked. All I could see was the couch at the end of the hallway and a light penetrating from the kitchen into the hallway. Kept knocking, kept calling, the phone kept ringing, you could hear it very loud inside, kept knocking, phone ringing, nothing, no movement whatsoever. 1 hour, we were behind the door, people cursing, screaming at us. Paulie and Nico were getting very, very, very nervous. At one point, Paulie said to me, he said, listen, let's go. We'll come back later, or we'll come back another day. We'll figure this out. I said, Paulie, let me tell you something. I'm not fucking going anywhere. Now this is personal. I'm taking this personal. I want to see who this guy is. No, come on, man, let's go. This is ridiculous. These people are going to come out and kill us. I threw Paulie the keys to my car, and I said, go. I'm not going. I'm not going until I meet this man. All right, fine, but you know, we're gonna get in trouble. I handed Paulie my phone, I said, you know what? Keep calling. If you don't hear from me, and if I don't open that door in 10 minutes, call the police. So what the fuck are you talking about? Before he finished the sentence, I was on my way upstairs. I got to the roof, hoping the roof door would be open, and of course it was. The roof was full of garbage, crack vials, needles, you name it. I went down the staircase, fire escape, got to the 5th floor where his apartment was. I was standing in front of the bedroom that had the broken furniture and all the paper in the floor. I looked, there was a kitchen light now penetrating from the kitchen into that room. Absolutely no movement, no shades, nothing, just the light. I looked, nothing. I knocked on the glass a couple of times, nothing. By then I was sure, I could have sworn that this man is deaf. There is no way on earth, with all the noise that we were making, that he did not hear anything. I lost my patience. My adrenaline was going skyrocket. You couldn't measure my adrenaline. At that particular moment, I became Spider-Man, Incredible Hulk, and Sherlock Holmes all in one. I grabbed the top of the staircase, pushed with both of my feet inside. The glass went shattered. I backed up onto the fire escape, got ready to run upstairs just in case he comes out, because no way a human being could not hear that. I figured this is when he's gonna come out with a knife, or a gun, or a shotgun, or God knows what. Look, nothing. I walk back downstairs, get into the room, constantly thinking to myself, what the fuck am I doing? This is illegal, this is crazy. First time in my life I was scared for my life. Scared for many, many reasons. Number one, I was entering illegally into somebody's apartment and he had every right in the world to shoot. Number two, most of my friends would have said, the fuck is wrong with you? Why did you do that? So I died for absolutely no reason. As I was walking along the wall to see the kitchen, I peeked in and I saw this man with his bag, with his hands in the sink, washing something. The water was running. I have no idea what he was doing. I took the deepest breath I think I have ever taken in my life. I felt like a high school wrestler who is about to go in and tackle his opponent for that championship. I was ready to fight this man, to tackle him, to take him down, because literally I felt that my life is in danger basically by my fault. But life is very, very sweet. So I walked into the kitchen, slowly, ready to tackle this man, and I figured I can take him down. I walk in and I go, Peter Kaziu! I've never seen anyone act in a more calming way in my life. His hands were in the sink. He turned around slowly, looked me straight in the eyes. His eyes had absolutely no expression, deep blue, looked me in the eyes and said, who are you? And what are you doing in my apartment? I wanted to punch him, how calm he was. I said, what do you mean, what am I doing in your apartment? I've been behind your fucking door for an hour knocking on the door. How many people knock on my door every day? I mind my own business. Now please leave. So what do you mean, leave? Your nephew is outside. Nephew? I don't have a nephew. Nico did not look like a scammer. This guy did not look rich. None of this added up. Now he says he has a nephew. I said, did we mistakenly walk into somebody else's apartment? I said, are you Peter Kaziu from Mirdita? Yes, I am, but I don't have no family. I have forgotten that I told Paulie, if I don't come back in 10 minutes, call the cops. The last thing I wanted was the cops. I ran back, opened the door, in, like if they were guilty of something. We walked into the kitchen, and I ordered them to sit down. I said, sit the fuck down. They both looked at the chairs and sit where? So I grabbed Paulie, I sit here. I straightened out the other chair, and I told Nico, sit here. The old man still washing chicken. Next to the chicken, there was a big bowl of cannellini beans soaked in water. I reached across him, I turned off the water, I tapped him on the shoulder, I said, talk to me. There's nothing to talk. I'm busy, I'm cooking my meals, please leave. This is your nephew. Came from Albania, he was in jail, you didn't answer the phone. What phone? I don't have a phone. You don't have a phone? No. I grabbed the phone from the wall. I said, what the fuck is this? That phone has been there since I moved in here. I don't know who it belongs to. 30 fucking years he had a phone that he never used. The phone rings all the time. So I don't answer it, it's not my phone. Nico, give me the pictures. I grabbed pictures from Nico's hand. I go to him, I said, do you know anybody here? He looks at it. He goes, that's my family. I thought you said you didn't have no family. Yeah, but that's my family in Albania. Did Enver Hoxha send you to kill me? I looked at him. Enver Hoxha died in 1985. I said, Enver Hoxha? Yeah, he sent you to kill me, didn't he? This is your nephew. I'm from Nikci in Kilman. This guy's from Dukagjini. We have nothing to do with Enver Hoxha. Yeah, you do. He sent you to kill him. I realized this man is stuck in a different time and in a different world. The fact that he spoke so well, he was well-spoken. He spoke the Kek dialect like one of the old priests in Albanian culture. He paused every time there was supposed to be a comma or a period. You could tell he was very well read. Later I found out he never went to school one day in his life. Spoke fluently 5 languages. 5 languages. Enver Hoxha killed everybody who's good, and I know he sent people all over the world to kill people like me. But I mind my own business. I don't mix with everybody. I'm just trying to help my family. This is your nephew, and if you don't believe me, ask him anything you want. Did you ever go to Mirdit? Mirdit is the northern part of Albania, mountainous region. Where in 1948 there were no roads, no cars up there. This man still thought it was 1948. Nico says, yeah, I went to Mirdit. How did you get to Mirdit? We drove. You drove? You drove what? The car. You see, you're communist. No, how am I communist? Only communists have cars. Uncle, you send us the money to buy the car. We bought the car with your money. Nobody in Albania is allowed to have cars except the communists. And by the way, how did you go, what road did you take to go to Mirdita? The main road. There is no roads to go to Mirdita. Of course there is, Uncle. There's no roads to go to Mirdita. 1948, there were no roads to go to Mirdita. Where's our house? Our house is the 3rd house on the left after the church. I have a picture. Hand me the picture. I had to show it to him. He goes, that's not our house. Nico looks at me and goes, Uncle, that's our house. Your grandfather built that house. It's been there for 200 years. The house did not have a tree in front of it. I looked at the house, there was a tree. But if the tree was planted in 1948, it was a big tree. He still thought the house was in 1948. Little by little, he was warming up to the idea that this, in fact, might be his nephew. We ended up moving to the living room and formed kind of a circle between the 2 chairs and the couch that looked like an episode from a movie where 4 alcoholics are in a meeting and they're talking about their demons. So Peter was a medium-built man, and what got me that day was that his apartment was not even cold, but he was wearing a heavy winter coat that looked like a military coat and a winter hat. Somewhere in my mind, I said to myself, this man is not wearing the coat and the hat because he's cold. He's wearing this to hide from the world. He was hiding in his own apartment with this kind of stuff. My favorite subject in high school was psychology. The first magazine I subscribed to in America when I came was Psychology Today. That day, I wished I had become a psychologist or a psychiatrist just to study this man. It was mesmerizing listening to him. It was mesmerizing watching him with absolutely no emotions, but with a great command of the language. So he sat down and started his story. I joined the guerrillas in Mountain when I was 18 years old. That's what a man is supposed to do. You know, us Mirditors, we never, ever accepted somebody else ruling over us. In fact, we declared independence from the Turks before anyone else in 1911. The communists were another breed. They came, they started killing all the intellectuals, all the honorable people, all the good people. That was their biggest threat, intellectuals. I remember in 1945, Praktsali was the leader of the Kilmandi tribe. Very, very honorable man, tall, good looking. In fact, Vermoshi and some surrounding areas stayed within Albania when the great powers did the borders because of Praktsali. One man that had authority in Marcia Move got a couple hundred soldiers quickly and threatened anybody who touches the borders of Albania. In 1945, it was surrounded in a cave near Tamare with 14 young rebels. Mehmet Shehu, who was the commander of the communists and eventually became the prime minister of Albania, gave him the besa, which is the highest promise an Albanian can give. When an Albanian gives you a besa, he will die and he will not break that. Mehmet Shehu gave him the besa that he will give him a fair trial. Praktsali decided to save the younger soldiers that he will surrender as long as he gets a fair trial. On Palm Sunday, a couple of days later, Praktsali and the 14 soldiers were executed near the Catholic cemetery in Shkodër. Before they were executed, they put blindfolds on them and told them to turn around. Praktsali refused. He took his blindfold off and told the soldiers with the guns pointed at them, "You don't go to paradise with your eyes closed and shut in the back. You want to shoot me, you shoot me in the front where I can see you. Long live Albania, long live Albanians, and Albania will win sooner or later." To this day, they don't know where the remains are. That's what the communists did. They started doing the same thing in Mirdi. We stayed there 4 years. We started running out of food and ammunition. They started punishing people who was bringing us food and ammunition. They started killing teachers, intellectuals. One day, we were in a battle and we were surrounded by the communists. I was there with my uncle Leshi, Reza, and Deda. Deda got killed. We escaped. The government took Deda's body, dragged him through every single village all the way to Leja. They dragged his body in order to torture the population that this is what happens if you don't agree with us. Deda was an intellectual, very well known in our part of the world, very well respected, and they dragged his body, buried him on the banks of Drini. To this day, we don't know where his body is. At that moment, I had a flashback or a deja vu. I was 13 years old. My father woke me up, said, "Get up. We gotta do something important today." "Yes, sir," I said sarcastically, thinking we're going hunting, which we did since I was a little boy. He said, "No, seriously, we gotta do something very serious today, and you cannot tell anyone. Not your teachers, not your friends, not your siblings." The face of my father told me, this is serious business. We went to the bank of River Gjovalin, which was near my school. My cousin John was there, and my cousin Tommy, who was a year older than me. My cousin John was one of the most exceptional people I have ever met in my life. He was actually supposed to adopt me when I was a baby boy. He was tall, elegant, very funny. I had a special relationship with him. It was like a father-son relationship. Before the war, he was studying engineering. In fact, he built the very first electrical power plant in our village, in our town, that gave light to all village. Not a small feat for a Katunar. After the war, he spent many years in prison, ended up moving to Beja, and the only job he could find was a taxi driver. His nephew Mishko was a highly decorated World War II pilot, and when the Yugoslavian government found out that he comes from our family, they demoted him to a local bus driver in Belgrade. He literally died of a heartache driving a bus in the streets of Belgrade. This is what communists did. 30 years prior, my cousin John was surrounded above our house with his brothers Kolja, Jeloshi, and Mika. Kolja, being the youngest one, told them, "You guys escape to Albania, I'll hold the countries back." They were surrounded, they started running, Kolja held them back, eventually making it into a cave in a little mountain called Brada Veziri near our house. A young shepherd, Rok Kolduli Palushai, was tending to his sheep that day. 7 o'clock in the morning, the battle started. Roku hid in the bushes the entire day, listening to the bullets fly between the Kolja and the other groups. There were hundreds of soldiers that surrounded him. Roku told me the story many, many, many times. The real story, not the bullshit that I read in history books, not the garbage that the government told. The real story. At the end of the day, there were 17 soldiers killed by my cousin. When he ran out of ammunition, he came out of the cave, told him, I'm going to surrender, with his handgun in his hand, told them, don't tell anybody that you bastards killed me. Long live Albania. Pew. One bullet took his own life. The commander ran, grabbed the gun, opened it, and he said, the son of a bitch saved the last fucking bullet for himself. My cousin had very long hair, beard, lived in the mountains for 4 or 5 years, like most of the rebels. They dragged his body through Gusinja the same exact way as they dragged Branka's uncle's body in Lej. This was a playbook of Stalin in both countries. They tortured the whole population. They went and got my grandfather, who was a World War I veteran, so he could not walk in the mountains, hence he didn't join the rebels, but was bringing them food, and asked him to go bury him in the banks of a river, but he's not allowed to tell anybody where he's buried. Of course, my grandfather told my father. 30 years later, apparently, the government gave us permission to go look for his remains, under one condition, that if we find him, we have to bury him secretly in our grave in the Catholic cemetery, and his name cannot appear on anything. No crucifix, no stone, anything. We gotta bury him secretly without any public knowledge. Some approval from the government, right? So we start digging. John, my dad, Tommy, and I. All day we dig. It was getting late, we were getting ready to leave, to come back the next day to start digging. My cousin Tommy screamed, I found something. We all ran to Tommy, and Tommy had a skull in his hand. He handed it to John. John took the skull in his hand, started cleaning the sand of it, and you could see the bullet hole in his right temple, exactly the same way Rok Kolduli told me the story. He looked at the skull and he said, that's my brother. I admired my cousin John. He was what we call Borbori, a man's man. Watching him there, with his brother's skull in his hand, was devastating. His eyes filled with tears. Albanian men don't cry. They're tough. Sometimes they act like they're tough, but they don't cry. I saw his eyes filled with tears, and these were not tears of sorrow. These were tears that he held hostage in his soul for 30 years. When the first tear went and splashed into that skull, I wasn't sure if that tear was looking for freedom or was it trying to bring life back into the skull. Watching my cousin cry was literally devastating. I felt like Jesus on the 9th hour of his tortures when he screams at God, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. God, God, why have you forsaken us? Peter continued his story, and all I could think it was about what tortures communist governments did to our people. How could anybody not stop them? So Peter continued with his story, and he says, there was a battle, and we were surrounded. We had to all promise each other that we will not surrender, but if I cannot kill myself, you have to kill me, I have to kill you, we'll kill each other, but we will not fall into their hands. This older tribal leader, Nicola, told his son, if I can't run, you have to kill me. I don't want you guys to die trying to save me. You have to kill me. The son said, okay, no, you have to promise me. Okay, Dad, okay. No, besen. Pasha besen. Okay, you have to kill me before we get caught. The time came that they actually got surrounded by the communists, and the father tells his son, take my life. What son is going to do that? So the son says, no, we're going to escape. We're going to carry you. Don't worry about it. You gave me Besa. Shoot me. No, Dad, don't worry. We're going to get you out. Listen, if you escape, don't tell anyone ever that you're my son. You cannot tell them you're my son. You didn't keep your Besa. You didn't keep your promise. Change your name. Don't tell people you are my blood. We don't do this kind of stuff. So the son told him, Dad, look if anybody's coming that way. The father turned around. The son shot his father behind his head. But he kept the Besa. The rest of them escaped. The old man was dead, left dead, with a bullet by his son. So in 1952, we escaped. First we escaped Yugoslavia, and we got put in jail. We escaped from jail. We went to Croatia, we crossed the border, we went to Italy, we stayed in a couple of camps in Italy, eventually came to New York, and this is where I've been ever since. Minding my own business, trying to help my family. I know my family suffered because of me. I know I can never make it right, but I try every day. Every day I try. You know, the problem with communism was that the first thing they tried to destroy was the family. They made everybody against each other. As Italians say, per la patria e la famiglia. I interrupted him and I said, ma lei parla italiano? His blue eyes turned gray. The person that was speaking calmly turned into a totally different person. His eyes were shooting fire. He looked at me and he said, what is wrong with you? Why are you talking to me in a different language? Judge Fischta, may God rest his soul, was right. May guten morgen and may buonasera, may dobra večer and may kalimera. That's what's wrong with us Albanians. We listen to everybody but God. That's why we are where we are. You learn a couple of words in Italian, and next thing you know is you think you're Dante Alighieri, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, Machiavelli. Pra mallkuenja I birë shqiptarit, që këtë gjuhë të Perëndis, trashikim që nela I pari, trashikim sjelen ai fëmis. Po ju thaft ati goja, që e përbuz këtë gjuhë hynore, e në gjuhë të huaja kur s'osh nevoja, flet e të vetën len mazdore. This man should have gotten the top award of any Shakespearean festival. I have never seen a performance like that in my entire life. This man performed as if Judge Fischta was resurrected from the dead, got into the body under that coat and winter hat, like an episode of The Exorcist, and took over this person's body. He taught me a lesson about Albanian language that I never thought could exist in such a powerful way. This man that was 5 minutes ago speaking calmly about killing and about son killing the father in the calmest manner ever, just became this fierce warrior with his mouth and his eyes burning in fire to teach me about the language. Because I had made a mistake and touched a nerve by asking him if he speaks Italian. I felt bad I touched the nerve, but I was also glad I touched that nerve because I've seen something that I've never seen in my life by this man. Sat down like nothing just happened. Told me about his work, how he walks every day to the factory 1.5 hours each way because subway is too expensive and his family is starving in Albania. Nico interferes and says, "Uncle, we built a beautiful house with the money you send us. We have 2 cars. We have a store. We live a wonderful life in Liège. We are not starving." I know you're lying. You are talking the communist propaganda. I know people in Albania are starving. Uncle, we are not. Back and forth. I asked him, how old are you? 71. How long you been working in that factory? 35 years. Brad, you know, you can get a pension. You probably make more money with your pension than you're making right now. I'll get you a passport. We'll send you to Albania. No. Never. Raka was married for 6 months before he escaped. His wife was still waiting for him 49 years later. I asked him, you know your wife is waiting for you, right? Yeah. But if you're never going to go back to Albania, why didn't you remarry? Because a man marries only once. Peter, Albania is no longer what it used to be. I promise you, I will go with you. I will show you that Albania has changed. And if you don't like it, we'll come back. Your nephew is here now. He'll take care of you for a couple of months until we come back from Albania. No. Do you know something? In 1959, the Albanian government passed a law. 128 people that escaped from Albania are not allowed to go back to Albania, dead or alive. The first person on that list was King Zog, who escaped to Egypt. My name is on that list. I'm not allowed to go alive or dead. So of course I'm not going to go alive. I'm going to stay here, I'm going to work until I can, and I'm going to send all the money to my family. You know, they don't have food. Yes, they do. They're okay. No. Now I'm not going back alive. Little by little, I could have sworn that I convinced him to go to Albania and to retire. I filled up his papers. I filled up his application for a passport. Never once did he say, okay, I'll go. He always said, we'll see. But he always said, no, I'm not going back alive. That, okay, we'll see, always gave me hope that I will take him there one day. Nico moved in with Peter, bought him a little furniture, we cleaned up the apartment a little bit. He refused any idea of leaving the apartment because every now and then he would say, oh, the landlady paid you to have helped to evict me. You're not a communist, but you're a landlady agent. Nick lived there for a month. Second day that Nick moved in, after we bought him the furniture and set him up in that bedroom that was all broken down, Nick went to the supermarket and came back with a bag of fruit. Put it on the table. He came back from work and he said, what is this? I said, fruit, apples, pears, cherries. I said, you can't buy that. That's luxury. Our family's starving in Albania. This man, 30 years, ate the same exact meal. Kidney beans with some chicken in it, filled half, frozen, came back from work, put hot boiling water in them, and this was his meal. Bread and kidney beans for 30 years. Nico stayed there for a month, ate the same food. We wouldn't let him bring anything in the house. No TV, no radio, no phone, no internet. Had to eat the same food. I went and talked to him many, many times, tried to convince him that life is not what he thinks it is. So I moved Nico out of there, found him an apartment in the Bronx, found him a job as a busboy in the Pelham Bay Diner in the Bronx. But Nico was the man. Nico went every Saturday to his uncle, never missed one Saturday, and spent the whole weekend with his uncle. Every weekend for months. Never once did he miss a weekend with his uncle. With all that suffering, he would sit down with him all day long and talk about the past and talk about the family, talk about Medina. On November 26th, I got a phone call from Nico. It was the phone call that I always knew somewhere deep that I will get one day. Nico said, something is wrong with my uncle. I said, what's wrong? He said, I don't know. But the door is locked and there's a police tape on the door. At that moment, everything froze. The only thing I could see in my head was these crazy, crazy visions from communism. And just like that, Peter Kaziu was gone. Kept his promise never to go back alive, but we broke the law, sent his body back, where the whole town came and buried him with the highest honors and respects. Rest in peace, a great warrior of Medita. That is the story of Peter Kaziu. Years ago, I started writing this story, and I literally got PTSD from this man. Every time I sat down, I had flashbacks of our conversations. It took me 20 years to finally tell the story. It was an incredible, incredible man. Put the light on, Petey, please.
Yeah.
I want to
Me?
yeah. I want to thank a couple of people. I want to thank my Kaufman Astoria family. Pete Romano, the vice president. Pete was instrumental in actually remaking this theater, which is an original 1920s theater. It was Adolf Zucker's personal theater. And I think I helped him a little bit, but Pete reopened this theater. And I have emotional attachments to the theater and to the Kaufman family. And happy birthday, Pete. This was your present. And I thank you all for coming. Thank you all for coming. But I especially want to thank this young lady. This is Liria Suarez. With all due respect to Barata and Mike Tadros, I could not ask for a better producer. We had 3 performances, and we had zero rehearsals, and she kept getting upset with me. And all the 3 performances were different because they all came from my heart and not from the script that I wrote, which is 20 pages long. So, but she kept on it, and she memorized it, and she knew exactly what to do. And she is, remember her name, because when she wins the Oscars, she's going to give us a shout out. And she's and I know that girl. So she was very, very patient and did a great job, and I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much. I thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed the story. It's a story that is very, very close to my heart, and I unfortunately couldn't do any more for this man that I tried to do. He had his life planned in his head. He never, ever forgave himself for escaping, even though he didn't know what the consequences would be afterwards. But he never forgave himself. Incidentally, 1 week before he passed away, I promised myself that I'm never going to say what happened to him, but I pretty much think you can all figure it out what happened to him. 1 week before he died, he spoke to his wife first time in 49 years on the phone for 5 minutes. That was the only conversation he ever had with his wife after he left Albania. 5 minutes, exactly 1 week before. 1 week before. It was sad to see him go. I remember when we had the funeral services for him in the Bronx, and we had a great mass in church. When his bosses came from the factory in Brooklyn, that explained a lot. The reason why Nico found that police tape in the back of on the door was first time in 30 years this man missed work. His bosses called the police and they said this guy didn't come to work. And that's how the police found what happened to him. 30 years. His bosses told me that day at the funeral that every single day this man was waiting outside for them to open the factory. Never did once he go late to work. he would pick up the newspapers from the workers, the Post, Newsday, Daily News, and New York Times, and read them because the newspapers were too expensive. But he would read every paper every day. Hence, he spoke 5 languages fluently. He was well-spoken, well-educated, but a prisoner of his own faith. Never forgave himself for what he did. Never, to the day that we sent him home. It was sad. Again, for years, I wish I would go back and say, what if I did this way? Nothing. This was his destiny, this was his faith, and that's that. If anybody has any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we're gonna go to Sanskrit, Juan's place right across the street. I'm gonna feed you all food and you are all buy me drinks. I think it's fair, right? Thank you again very much for coming. And I'll see you all at Sanskrit. Please, everybody go to Sanskrit. There's plenty of room and plenty of food. Just wait till the day, I'll get you a couple of people.
Hey, how are you? How's everything? Good to see you. You want to get up now or you want to wait for all of us?
You've always worked at